Love a Chaz and Dave anecdote to start anything, and that's not just a Spurs fan inside of me, it's the music fan generally. And I think Andrew's maybe had a look at my slides without me looking, because there's some more Dr. Dre stuff to come up, but you can never have enough of that. But thank you for that. That is a lot of fun. Am I on the screens here? Yeah? Okay. So as Andrew said, thank you for having me. My name is James Hamlin. I run sales and marketing at a business called Who Sampled. We're a music discovery experience that takes the origins of music and creates a new listening and experience for you to discover the origins of music, not only what inspired it, but what continues to inspire it into the future. And when I looked at the agenda for this event, and I saw them in the room downstairs, lots of young people doing lots of really interesting stuff. So I thought about building this presentation. So we'd kind of talk about how this stuff can relate to young people, the sort of thing they're looking to do now, how they can use APIs, how they're thinking about it, and how they can start to build the next Who Sampled in the future, and how we've got to where we're at. So it's a generalization in music APIs, and I'm sure that if you're building software platforms here, or you work with services, and you've seen some presentations after the last couple of days, you've heard the term. And look, I'm not necessarily going to predict the future, because I only have 12 minutes to do so, but we can certainly talk about it, right? And so much innovation at something like this, in a building like this, makes it really exciting and makes it a really poignant time to do that. So lots of kids building stuff, and I'm sure you're going to see the evidence of it later, and that's super exciting. And the hackathon that's taking place, with APIs being exposed to that, it's, but maybe it's a little bit simpler than we think, right? Maybe it's just all about innovation and harnessing it and making things that, in a sense, are useful and make the world better. But before we look forwards, we'll look back slightly, because, I expected a lot more young people in this room, but you're all kind of my age, so that's okay. You'll kind of follow that, and that is a little bit of a plug, because I'm representing a service and a culture and a movement, in a sense, that looks back at the innovators of this music and kind of conceptualizes and puts them in a place with the music that you hear today and listen to into the top 40. So let's go back. I'm 38 years old. I don't mind telling you that. You get this Chaz and Dave reference. So let's go back to when I was a lot younger. Let's go back to when I was 13 years old. Same age as some of those kids down here, 1989. Technology, music, very different, right? Not only were they not cool at all, they were very, very separate. In case you can't see that on the left, that's Bill Gates, and that on the right, that's Phil Collins, right? Represented rock and roll, represented technology. Me as a 13-year-old, neither represented things that I wanted to be involved in any way, shape, or form. Because back when I was 13, teenager, growing up in the hard streets of Surrey, I wanted to be down with this crew. That's what I wanted to be involved in. NWA Straight Outta Compton came out in 1988, and it was the most innovative, hard-hitting, controversial thing that ever come into our world, right? It's funny, if you play it to a teenager now, they just like look at you and go, yeah, whatever, granddad, But back then, it was the future, and it was certainly something that I wanted to be part of, and it didn't represent maybe what had gone before it. And I guess you can kind of see where this is going, because if you fast forward 25 years to now, this happens, right? And there's no way we could have predicted that back then, but there you have the press shot, and my friend made the point, it's like Dr. Dre at the very end of his smile there, he's barely keeping it, but he's just made several $1 billion there. He's next to Tim Cook at Apple, but look, we've taken these two things, taken them far apart and brought them completely together. They represent one thing, right? So the 13-year-old that's looking at that now is thinking completely differently, right, to what I was then, and maybe what some of you were as well. And again, look, if you look at someone like a Dr. Dre, this hasn't happened by accident, right? You can't necessarily swap him out for, the other members of NWA, because they're either dead or making movies with Kevin Hart. But if you look at what Dr. Dre did, then look, continual innovation, right? And that's the key in the stem through it. So innovative back then with the NWA records. Eminem, you'll see it, the picture of that. a white rapper being the biggest name in rap music? Would have rap music and hip hop become what it has become without a white rapper spearheading that? Potentially not, right? Now being spearheaded by a mixed race Jewish Canadian guy, but that's how rap music kind of works, right? And again, Beats by Dre headphones on the right hand side. I don't get into the backlash of that. The first time we had this conversation yesterday in the pub, first time I heard Beats by Dre headphones, game changer for me. Game changer for me. And, innovation. I didn't know that I wanted to spend £300 on headphones, and he convinced me that I did, and millions of other people as well. And, it's people like him and what he's done that have, look at the Who Sample business, right? It wouldn't exist without that. We wouldn't be able to build a musical service that can tell these types of stories without him and people like him that continue to push innovation boundaries. There's just a little infographic there about him, and we'll go on the theme of similar sort of tidbits. He's actually been sampled 2.5 times more than he's actually sampled records. If you use the app for Who Sampled, you'll kind of figure that out, and with hip-hop representing the biggest genre of influence. But again, it's allowing these stories to be told through additional platforms. I'll just jump into the data piece, and this is what allows us to be a very API-driven, focused business, is around data. There's been a data stem around lots of things that you've heard. I'm sure there's tons of data at work in that Ableton machine for sure, making that thing do the incredible stuff that it does. And we're no different, right? We're pushing on 300,000 tracks in our database, and this is the fascinating thing about how technology and how tribes have helped merge this service. Again, remember the 13-year-old me? I knew some of this stuff, right? I knew some stuff, but now we've kind of united the world that can submit all this information in one place. And again, you fast forward, think what that type of concept means to the 13-year-old in 2014. Not only do they look a lot cooler than I did. I used to wear all those NWA clothes. It's one for MASH on Oxford Street. But they're thinking about things in a certain way. So it's like as you absorb yourself into that kind of ecosystem now, with an existing business or ones that you want to form, it's thinking about how you can actually provide something for that. I mean, look, these all brands, and this is the 2013 slides, slightly out of date, but these are all music brands, quote-unquote household, all exposing APIs to community to build stuff. And you'll see Who Sampled on there, and lots of other businesses in the space, SoundCloud, Mixcloud, Seatwave, etc. You'll see on there, again, the 13-year-old version of us has the ability to then take this and actually start to create the things that they want, the things that can move things, the things that are better. Bit of a cliche thing, I put this in there. Nike's had the aspirational brand, again, for the last 25 years, just do it. And they get behind this game changers thing, but they kind of do it for a reason, right? They kind of do it for a reason. Let's change stuff. Let's make it better. Let's come up with something that we never could have thought of. As I was going through those car boot sales, looking for records and samples and stuff, and as these producers were making these records, they never could have envisaged I'd have them all in my pockets. They kind of didn't think that way, but people did, and services like Who Sampled exist. And I guess if you think about how we use our APIs to expose content to a new audience, that's James Brown. I'm sure you've all heard of him. There's just been a movie about him. I've seen it. I shouldn't have seen it, but I've seen it. It's really good, actually. It's really, really good. It's called Get On Up. It's a great performance by the central lead. But if you look at the left, that's James Brown Experience. That's the big payback. That's great. It's a great record. I recommend you go and pick it up. But on the right, you'll see that's us working with the actual movie release, building a website which anybody can use, with playlists, with influences, all data-driven, taking off our data, allowing people to understand this is a simple way to digest this content. Alice has a collaboration with Def Jam, so if people come in from a Def Jam artist, they can see his collaboration. That's Get On Up, jamesbrown.com, if you want to check that out. Thoroughly recommend it. Also, in terms of another thing, we have an event called Samplethon. Again, we think about music APIs in a different way, an evolution of the hackathon concept. So what we want to focus on is, in a sense, an industry which doesn't necessarily work as closely as it should. Sampled music, producers and the sampled working closer together to make finished work. So we have a Sample-thon event that we did at the Great Escape and hope to be doing at future events throughout the calendar, where we get producers and we get owners of sampled material together in a room, making stuff. Samplethon.com. Go check it out. That release is coming out later on this year. Fantastic. And yeah, again, it's thinking about this data like an API in terms of its distribution and in terms of its usage. So thinking about the future, who will be on the aspirational slide in 15 years? That's kind of fun, right? If you kind of think about, if we fast forward, is it going to be, you know, somebody that we're looking at today? Is it still going to be a Dr. Dre type, or is it going to be one of those 13-year-olds? Who knows? But I think it's safe to say that, you know, they're going to be taking on that same aspirational vision and concept that those that did before them. And look, data, technology, and talent as well. That's one thing that isn't going to be disputed, as it's going to be part of that. That's for absolutely sure. And, you know, as you're thinking about what you do from a business perspective and, you know, how you make something great, I mean, that Ableton stuff, that was something really great, you know. So that's obviously something that they think about when they carve out new technology, for sure. Certainly making a difference. And, yeah, when I used to make music, I didn't make it on something like that. That's for sure. And neither did Dr. Dre, but remember that. Okay, so yeah, I'll leave it with James Brown. That's my 10 minutes done, and thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. I'm going to be, oh, here we go. I'm on this one as well. James Hamlin, thank you very much. That's right. I have a question from the audience. We don't do Q&As typically at Music Tech Fest, but I have one question that a few people have asked me. What's an API?
Sorry?
What's an API?
Sorry?
Awesome performance indicator?
Something like that. Yeah. So it's maybe someone else's. I sometimes get this. Is it access programmable interface?
Application programming interface, something like that. I understand it in a very non-technical way, which is you've got a massive database of information on your site. It's a way of other programs getting access to the information that they want without going through and scraping through your whole site. It's just a kind of a back end into your database. Does that make sense? Is that
It
close?
does. And you know, I wouldn't get too bogged down in the technology behind it. I'm not intelligent enough at all to understand how that works. But it's more of a concept, right? It's more of a concept. It's more of a perception to say to yourself, because what an API does, in a sense, it's an open information flow between two big computers talking to each other, right? So you can go back and forth and get information so that people can build apps, they can build services, they can build all sorts of things. But it's this concept of data being made available freely for people to go away and do great stuff, right? So it's that type of concept. And, you know, we have that based on data. And, you know, all sorts of businesses have them, right? And that's a brilliant thing. But it's just more of that mindset and understanding that to say, look, you know, information isn't locked away, it's available, it's everywhere, but it's look at what people have done when they've had exposure to that, right? Look at something like travel industry, for example. It is where it is because someone doesn't sit with that data and protect it. It's wide open, and that's why, you know, we're all using these amazing travel services, because it's just free for people to build and free for people to innovate. So I'd say it's more of a mindset without us getting into the actual technology of that. But like, yeah, we have an API if you're interested in working with it. Just get in touch with me. That's not a problem.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. James Hamlin from